أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. Amma ba'd. Brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of the Sayyid series. Before we enter into the topic which I intend to discuss today, I would like to mention that this topic is not discussed as much as it should be discussed. And when something is untouched or undiscussed, what happens is a lot of misconceptions can arise, especially when people had no prior understanding of the topic. In this regard, there have been misconceptions in the past, there are misconceptions now, and there will be misconceptions in the future. But the aim of these videos is to minimize those objections as much as possible using the sources of Islam at our disposal. One of those potential objections which may arise is with regards to the concept of Zakah and the concept of Khums in Islamic thought, Zakah in general Islamic thought, and Khums in Shi'i thought. One of the misconceptions that has which can surface is the idea that, look, Zakah is forbidden upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his progeny. However, we don't believe that this zakat, the reason why it was forbidden upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his progeny, we don't believe it was forbidden upon them in an honorary sense. And then there's many critiques which someone can bring forward. For example, we know that the reason why zakah is forbidden upon the Sadat is that zakah is considered filth from the hands of the people. And in particularly the Shi'i thought, this is replaced with a system called Khums. And this Khums is a tax which is, in Shi'i thought particularly, is divided into the Sahm al-Imam and the Sahm al-Sada, the share of the Imam and the share of the Sayyids. And this is a compensation for the forbidding of zakah upon Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi and al-Muhammad alayhi wa sallam. Now, a person can come forward and say, okay, zakah is forbidden. However, we don't believe it's honorary because of many reasons. But one of the objections which someone might give is, why would Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam call zakah from a non-Sayyid filth? And they would say there's no justification for calling something filth, which is obligated, the giving of which is obligated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then they mentioned the verse of the Holy Quran in Surah At-Tawbah, verse 103. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً تُطَهِّرُهُمْ وَتَزَكِّيهِمْ بِهَا وَصَلِّ عَلَيْهِمْ إِنَّ صَلَاتَكَ سَكَنٌ لَهُمْ وَاللَّهُ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. Take from their wealth charity to cleanse and purify them, and pray for them. Surely your prayer is a source of comfort for them, and Allah is the all-hearing and all-knowing. And then they say, it doesn't say in this verse that it is dirt. Firstly, let's see some narrations from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi and his family with regards to this term, that it is dirt or awsakh or wasakh from the hands of people. And by this we will learn, has it been called filth as an invention by the fuqaha? Did the Sayyids invent it? Hadith number 1, and this is famous from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. عن أبي جعفر وأبي عبد الله, from Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam and Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam.
عن أبي جعفر وأبي عبد الله عليه السلام قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم إن الصدقة أوساخ أيدي الناس, that verily sadaqah is filth from the hands of the people. And later in the tradition he says وَإِنَّ الصَّدَقَةَ لَا تَحِلُّ لِبَنِي عَبْدِ الْمُطَّلِبِ, that verily a sadaqah is not permissible, is not halal for Abdul Muttalib.
Hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam.
In Sahih Muslim, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم: إن الصدقة لا تنبغي لآل محمد وإنما هي أوساخ الناس. That verily sadaqah is not befitting for Al Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. Verily it is the filth from the hands of the people.
Hadith number 2 from Imam Ali alayhi salam.
In Al-Ihtijaj by At-Tabrasi, عن مسعدة بن صدقة عن جعفر بن محمد عليه السلام قال: خطب أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام فقال: ولم يجعل لنا في الصدقة نصيبا أكرم الله سبحانه وتعالى نبيه وأكرمنا أن يطعمنا أوساخ أيدي الناس. So it's from Mas'adat ibn Sadaqah from Ja'far ibn Muhammad alayhi salam, as-Sadiq alayhi salam, who said, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam gave a khutbah, and in the khutbah he said, later on in the khutbah, and Allah did not give us a share in this sadaqah. Akram Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala nabiyuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored his prophet, wa akramana, and he has honored us from eating from the dirt from the hands of the people. As part of a longer hadith in Al-Kafi, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says, Allah Azza wa Jal sanana an sadaqati wa hiya awsakhu aydin nas. Allah, most majestic, most glorious, has protected us from charity, which is dirt of the hands of the people.
The next hadith is from Imam Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salam.
Tahdhib al-Ahkam by Shaykh al-Ta'if al-Tusi. Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam said as part of a longer hadith, وإنما جعل الله هذا الخمس خاصة لهم دون مساكين الناس وأبناء سبيلهم عوضا لهم من صدقات الناس تنزيها لهم من الله لقرابتهم من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وكرامة لهم عن أوساخ الناس. That indeed Allah has designated this khums exclusively for them, and who's being referred to here, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's family, and not for the destitute among the people or their wayfarers. This is as a compensation for them in the place of the sadaqah of the people, as a means of purifying them from Allah due to their closeness to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and as an honor for them, raising them above the impurities of the people.
And the next hadith is from Imam Ali al-Ridha alayhi salam.
In the Amali of As-Saduq, it is narrated by Imam Ridha alayhi salam. He says, as part of a longer hadith, حرم عليهم لأن الصدقة محرمة على محمد وأهل بيته وهي أوساخ الناس لا تحل لهم. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it forbidden for them because charity, sadaqah, is prohibited for Muhammad and Al Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It is considered the impurities of the people, dirt of the people, and it is not permissible for them.
We could go on and on. There's many narrations of this kind. And this should demonstrate that this is not an invention, a later invention by the fuqaha or the Sayyids. So the objection that the Quran does not mention it as awsakh or wasakh, the lack of mentioning in the Holy Quran of a certain aspect does not necessarily negate the fact that the concept or aspect exists. The next point, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi and his Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam are those who explain the Quran and give its tafsir. Unless the person making the objection is a Quranist, why does it matter if it's not actually mentioned in the verse when the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam are giving the tafsir? So what if someone comes along and says, what is meant by this, paying this obligation, is only the things mentioned in the Quran? So to cause them to be purified, grow, be blessed. This argument would be based solely on the Quran, ignoring the ahadith which explain the verses of the Holy Quran from those in authority to explain it. The next point, the point of it being wasakh or awsakh or filth is metaphorical. Its implications are spiritual and not physical. The idea that it cleanses wealth is not a physical aspect, in a physical sense. For example, money comes along and rubs other money and it becomes pure. This is not what it means. It is considered dirt because if it remains in the wealth, it will pollute the rest of the wealth. And people who are interested in feeding their family halal, therefore they aim to get rid of the zakah as soon as possible, the wajib zakah. So just like somebody makes haste in cleaning their home in order to avoid picking up disease or picking up illnesses. So when someone comes along and says, hey, my wealth is purified, here you go, here's the zakah. This is considered by multiple narrations of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi and the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam of not being befitting for them. So imagine a person with a perfectly clean and fresh handkerchief. You wouldn't offer a handkerchief which has been used for a mundane task, for a guest of honor, for example. In the case where he might need it as an emergency, or he might need it for general usage after eating or for any other purpose, you would ensure that there are new handkerchiefs available for him to use. You would not offer him one which is used for a mundane task. However, for somebody who's passing by your home and you happen to be outside and he has a need, you won't think about the quality of the handkerchief as much as you would have thought about it for the guest. The guest deserves the best, though they may need one urgently. You wouldn't care about it as much as if it was a stranger. Now, other than the fact that this is a physical impurity we're speaking about here, and what we're speaking about is more of a spiritual impurity, it demonstrates, though examples are not perfect, that there's certain things which are not suitable for people who you are obliged to respect. A person objecting to this on the basis of, hey, you can't call it filth, it's like the person saying, cleanliness, being clean, is nusful iman, is half of your faith. It's something ordained by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yet you call the handkerchief dirt? Isn't it used to achieve a closer state to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The second point which someone can raise, they can say, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam would never call the zakah of the ummah dirt. It is insulting for them. And this is against his teachings, his infallibility, his sunnah, and so on and so forth. Firstly, one must be careful when saying Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam would not do or not say a certain thing. That's because if Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam did that certain thing or said that certain thing, then the implication that he would not say this because that would be insulting is saying if he did say it, and that means that Rasulullah was insulting indeed, which is something which we do not think of when we or attribute to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. May Allah forgive us. Secondly, not respecting somebody is insulting. But what is respecting somebody? Respecting someone is taking into consideration their rights. Now, is it the right of widows to marry again after their former husband has passed away? Yes. Is it the right of men to choose whatever woman they please? Be she a widow or be she a virgin? Yes. But Allah and the Prophet, peace be upon him, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, didn't they forbid marrying the Prophet's widows? Thereby taking away these particular rights of those people who may have possibly married the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam after him? Isn't he taking away their rights? Isn't this disrespect? Na'udhu billah. Isn't he taking the right away from the widows, the right of protection, the needs that a lady has? Is he disrespecting his wives by limiting their freedom of choice? Na'udhu billah. We don't say this. What we do say is, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, An-Nabiyyu awla bil-mu'minina min anfusihim. That the Prophet is foremost to a believer than he is to himself. He is closer to the believer. He has more authority over the believer than that believer has over himself. That means if you perceive something a certain way, you say, this is how I see things. And Rasulullah says no. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says no. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wins that argument every time. because he has greater authority over the believers than they have over themselves. The Quran says in Surah 33 verse 53, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَمَا كَانَ لَكُمْ أَن تُؤْذُوا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَلَا أَن تَنْكِحُوا أَزْوَاجَهُ مِن بَعْدِهِ أَبَدًا إِنَّ ذَلِكُمْ كَانَ عِندَ اللَّهِ عَظِيمًا. It's not for you, it's not befitting for you to hurt Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, nor to marry his wives after him ever. This is in the sight of Allah, Azim, a great matter, mighty in the eyes of Allah, in its scope, in its seriousness. What can we derive from An-Nabiyyu awla bil mu'minina min anfusihim? That Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi wasallam is not just the Rasul, not just the deliverer of the message, but he himself is considered a significant part of the message. This is why he is called Rahmatan lil Alameen himself. And this is separate from Islam being a rahmah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam also himself is called Rahmatan lil Alameen. Can someone argue that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, by cancelling out the parts which says Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and when he replaced it with Muhammad ibn Abdullah alayhi salatu wasalam sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that he himself trampled over one of the pillars of faith and conceded? No, and definitely no. This is because Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam himself is in the position of the message. It's not only Islam that's a rahmah to us. It's also Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, rahmatan lil alameen. Do we not say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh? Why are we testifying to the risala of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa till this day? Someone comes and says, Ya akhi, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam came with a message and delivered it, and he was a normal man like us. No, Ya akhi, no. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God forbid, the matter is not like that. Therefore, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam feels uncomfortable when Sahaba came and lingered around for too long in his home, to the extent where it started to affect the ghira of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds. If somebody gives him a personal insult, like abtar, or being childless, where they don't necessarily say anything bad about Islam per se. They may in other occasions, but in this particular sense, in this particular insult, they're not saying anything about Islam. It's only about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still responded to the comment of abtar. If someone raises their voice above Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa, they may follow every other principle of Islam, every other commandment of Islam. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still responds. If someone wants to marry the widow of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam after him, then what is perceived as halal becomes haram. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it haram for his honor. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is an exceptional creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for an exceptional prophet, an exceptional Rasul, for an exceptional creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's exceptional rulings. Not marrying his wives after him should not be seen as disrespecting anyone, God forbid, na'udhu billah, but rather an exception to the rule for the sake of the honor of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa. If someone says this is just once, that no one was allowed to marry the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa, of course it was once, they lived once. However, if it occurred even once, it demonstrates our point. The principle remains. If someone wants to take the argument further, then it has been narrated by a number of chains from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the books of Ahl Sunnah and Tashayyuh, the Shia. And the wording can vary. That Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لا يؤمن عبد حتى أكون أحب إليه من نفسه ويكون عترتي أحب إليه من عترته ويكون أهلي أحب إليه من أهله ويكون ذاتي أحب إليه من ذاته. That a servant will not achieve Iman, complete Iman, until they love, they consider me more beloved than they love themselves. My itra, my progeny, is more beloved to them than their own progeny. And my ahl al-bayt, he means, is more beloved to them than their own ahl. وَيَكُونَ ذَاتِي أَحَبَّ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ ذَاتِهِ. And that I, myself, my that, is more beloved to that person than their own selves. Ya Rasulullah, sallallahu alayka wa alika wa sallam. We understand that we are to love you more than ourselves. It's a Qur'ani matter. النَّبِيُّ أَوْلَى بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ. However, what is the loving of your ahl more than a person's own ahl? And the loving of the itra of yours more than their own itra? Itra here, the word itra here refers to the Sadat. As here there is a clear distinction between ahl and itra, and it's separated with wa. So the ahl here refers to Ahlul Bayt and the itra refers to the Sadat. Now, can it be said that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is seeking to manipulate his position in Islam for benefits, na'udhu billah, for his family? Is it nepotism? Is it familial bias? You see, if we want to classify things using a modern interpretation of human rights, you would run into issues. Surah 17 verse 23 says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَنْ لَا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِنْدَكَ الْكِبْرَ أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا وَقُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. That your Lord has decreed that you worship none but Him and honor your parents. If one or both of them reach old age in your care, never say to them even uff, nor yell at them. Rather, address them respectfully. A person could potentially come forward and say, why is Allah disrespecting the rights of us, sons and daughters? What, parents can do whatever they want? Abuse us? Hit us? Get us to do all the chores? Get us to do all the housework? Give us task after task, job after job, and we don't say nothing? Even hit us and we say nothing? So that person can say, oh, Islam disrespects sons and daughters. If we use the same logic that is being used in this argument that, calling zakah filth is disrespect, then someone can argue that this is coercive control. The Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam promoting coercive control. Na'udhu billah. He's promoting authoritarianism, parentification, toxic authority, emotional tyranny, and oppressive parenting. Na'udhu billah. Do we ascribe these things? Do we attribute these things to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? No, we don't, and we cannot. Na'udhu billah. May Allah protect us from that. You can see how we can easily label things as disrespect, but everything is part of a set divine system which is subject to the wisdom of Allah. One can come forward and say Allah disrespects virgin women. Na'udhu billah. A man in all cases does not need permission from a guardian to marry. However, a virgin woman, a virgin lady, initially seeks the permission from her guardian. Is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala disrespecting them, na'udhu billah, in the form of sexism? Is he promoting it, na'udhu billah? A man has a full share in inheritance. A woman has half. Is this disrespecting women? Na'udhu billah. Allah calling a woman undeserving is surely an insult to na'udhu billah. We do not say this. A woman's testimony in Sharia is half of a man's. Is this disrespecting women? Surely Allah calling a woman deficient in testimony is disrespect, na'udhu billah. A woman is required to cover herself and a man is not. Surely Allah targeting women is disrespect. Na'udhu billah. We don't say this. Or do we say instead that it is all part of the divine wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as part of a perfect system? A woman cannot refuse physical marital relations with her husband unless she has a religious reason or health reason. Where is the respect for her freedom of choice? Is Allah disrespecting her freedom of choice, limiting her freedom of choice? Yet the husbands can engage in such relations whenever he wishes. Is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, is he disrespecting women? Na'udhu billah. Do we agree with this statement? A woman's rights upon her husbands are numerous. A husband's rights upon his wife are numerous. However, the wife's rights in comparison are lesser. Does that mean Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala disrespects women by taking away many rights from them? Na'udhu billah, we do not say this. Or do we say it's a part of divine wisdom? And these very same people come forward and say Islam needs reform. And for me, these objections are over zakah and causing doubts over zakah and khums, particularly with zakah, and in a Shi'i perspective, khums, is coming and is a person coming and trying to rehaul and reinvent Islam and give it a reformation where Islam does not require this. Argument 3 that someone can put forward. Why is wajib zakah awsakh? Surely if what makes zakah filth is the wujub, or the obligation to give it away, if it makes it dirt, awsakh, because it's a wajib tax, then surely the proponents of khums, the people who argue that Sayyids can eat from khums, say it's wajib too. Both of them would be spiritually impure for the wealth if not given, right? The answer to this doubt is very simple. It has been described as awsakh with addition to aydin nas, of the hands of the people. So it's not only a matter of it being filth, but the fact that it is given from any person in the ummah, from the rest of the ummah. So on one hand, it is awsakh, and on the other hand, it is from aydin nas, from the hands of the people. The combination of this makes it unsuitable for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his progeny. Why? Because it would expose them to a system which everybody else relies upon as a relief from their poverty. This negates then the idea of them being honored this way. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not wish for his progeny to be subject to that which everybody else is subject to, as a distinction for him and his family. Khums is not something the average Muslim has access to. Khums is not halal upon non-Sadat. It's not halal. Therefore, because it doesn't address both of these things, which makes zakah, wajib zakah, awsakh nas, the proposition that they should be equal in any way is invalid. And also bear in mind, khums is specifically designated for Sadat. So, in this way, it definitely does not address both of the things which make the wajib zakah unsuitable for this family. The next argument which someone can put forward, if it is conceded that this is something that is set aside for the sake of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then there is another issue someone can say. What's that issue? That it would be different if people gave money from their own will, right? And it would have been more appropriate if people gave it from their own free will and weren't coerced into doing this. 2 points to start off. Number 1, if zakah is forbidden upon the Sadat, then where do they eat from? The poor of them. So this necessitates an alternative system. Other than this, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself forbade people from marrying his widows. He never left it to the people to decide whether they wanted to marry his widows or not. It's been made haram by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The reason as to why it was enforced in the first place, because this is something unacceptable in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it is azim in his eyes, it is a mighty sin in the eyes of Allah. And this is too great for it to be left to chance. Likewise, the Sadat and Khums, the Sayyids and Khums. The one making this objection would say Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam should have left it on people to choose from their own will to not marry his wives or to marry his wives. But then that doesn't guarantee the honoring of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In this case, you can clearly see that this is something enforced in the Holy Quran. It's not left upon the people. So how does this argument stand? The intention doesn't really matter. Whether someone avoids it, meaning marrying the widows of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam out of dislike, while disliking the law in their hearts, or whether someone follows it because they love the law, it does not matter. What matters to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the protection of the status of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The next argument someone can put forth is khums is something which is to do with money, finance. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam never asked for money, only asked for mawadda in the verse of mawadda. The first point addressing this is the verse in no way says, it doesn't say at all, and doesn't indicate any reference to money. There is no reference to money in the verse. If you notice, no Rasul, no Nabi who was asked the question of Ajr in the Holy Quran ever asked instead for something personal and always redirected them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. This is already an exception. Like I said, an exceptional creation, exceptional rules. All the verses of the Quran which came from other prophets or from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which negate asking for a reward, come before his migration. Why is this important? Because after his migration, Imam Hassan and Hussein alayhum as-salam were born. So, not only this, despite the fact that the surah is a Makki surah, a surah which was revealed in mostly in Mecca, these verses, this and a few others, the verse of Mawaddah was revealed in Medina. So, it does not contradict the other verses, but rather, and it doesn't go against the previous verses, because it highlights a progression of events. A person's circumstances change. When Imam Hassan and Hussein alayhum as-salam came into this world, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's priorities changed. Just like anybody's household, where a child is born and their priorities change. It does not necessarily mean that there is an usul which has been violated. Second, does giving money contradict mawaddah? Because if it doesn't, then why can't it be accepted that this money, as a provision, is a part of the mawaddah? So it doesn't necessarily have to be mentioned separate from mawaddah, because it may be part of it. Narrated by both Sunni and Shia sources.
An example of such narrations is in Man La Yahduruhu al-Faqih, and it's from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, who says, Inni shafi'un yawm al-qiyamati li'arba'ati asnafin walau ja'u bidhunubi ahli ad-dunya rajulun nasara dhurriyati wa rajulun badala maluhu lidhurriyati 'inda ad-dhiq wa rajulun ahabba dhurriyati bil-lisani wal-qalbi ورجل سعى في حوائج ذريتي إذا طردوا أو شردوا. That I will intercede on the day of judgment. I will be the intercessor for 4 types of people, even if they come with the sins of the people of the earth. The one who helped my dhurriya, the one who gave money for my dhurriya and sacrificed money for my dhurriya at the time of difficulty. And then the narration goes on, but the important part here is the badala maluhu lidhurriyati.
The one interceding is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. That means anything being done for his dhurriya is done for his sake. Hence, money is also a part of that. So this is not a contradiction. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam then is confirming that money is also part of this mawaddah. So why would he promise intercession for something which has no basis? Another thing somebody could say is that the gap between the Prophet, peace be upon him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and his descendants is far too great for an average person to take notice of it. Meaning, if it is to honor Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the khums, then surely Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's immediate relatives would be honored, and not his descendants that will come later, due to the fact that for a normal person who's looking at these things, he cannot perceive the relation between that person and Rasulullah. The apparent kinship is no longer between them. I say, Ya subhanallah, what kind of argument is this? A person who's a descendant of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi is Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam, Zayd ibn Ali al-Shahid alayhi salam. The other Sadat upon whom there is no ikhtilaf, Ali al-Uraydi alayhi salam. These Sayyids, surely this person who is bringing forth an example of this kind, surely this person isn't saying that we do not honor these people because the evident relation between them and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi is not there. Can they see Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi in the time of the later Sada, the later Sayyids? Can they see Rasulullah waving a flag saying, this is my descendant? No, they can't. Na'udhu billah, astaghfirullah. Can we see that happening? Can we see Can we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is Allah evident to everybody? Can everybody see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminding everyone to pray every day? You can't see that, can you? But it's with Iman that you understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, it's with Iman that you understand that the descendants of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi are his children, regardless of the distance between them. The next parts of somebody delivering such an objection, or rather, another way to answer this, is over 2,000 years passed between Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi and Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. Yet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam addressed Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam as his father. Is Nabi Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam not honored as Al Ibrahim? And the distance, and nobody argues here that there's no apparent link between Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa. So what does one make of the hadith which say that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam will intercede for those who honor his progeny? And when he says those who honor his progeny, in the various ways he said it, in one of the hadith he says, أَحَدًا مِّن ذُرِّيَّتِي, a single person from my dhurriyyah. Now this is not time bound. Does Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam not know that it's hard for people to comprehend this? Is this what we believe? Is this how things work? It is insulting towards Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa to make such an argument. Sayyidah Zahra alayha salam, when she said, I give my salam to my descendants until the day of judgment. The people, this person who's objecting should go to Sayyidah Zahra alayha salam and say, no, Sayyidah Zahra, too many ancestors, we can't handle it. Right? They should go to Sayyidah Zahra and they should have corrected her. And have gone to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa and said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayka wa alika wa sallam. Your dhurriyyah, what, the ones who are coming after 300-400 years? Them too many ancestors, too many fathers, we can't handle it. Is this how these people think? Doesn't the Quran say, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, those who believe in the ghaib? Doesn't the Quran say that? So a part of it is Iman, not the apparent. When you see a Sayyid today, you can't see his family tree, you can't see his link to Rasulullah, you can't see Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam confirming whether he's a descendant or not. But it's the matter of your Iman, that you learn he's a Sayyid, you know he's the son of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa that he's a grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa This is a matter to do with your Iman. If you can't see it, this isn't a problem with the concept of honoring Sayyids, it's a problem with you. And this is a problem that needs to be corrected. So, the next argument is, if the purpose behind Khums is to honor the descendants of Rasulullah, then surely those who are related to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam maternally, whose mother is a Sayyidah, for example, those people should also be entitled to Khums. However, the majority opinion does not say this, that they are entitled to it. And then someone can also say, yeah, look, Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam, the Sayyids are from Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam. She's a daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi never had any sons who continued, and they all passed at a young age. They're all a descendant of a daughter. Therefore, shouldn't the other relations through the maternal side be on it? I say this is a baseless argument. As Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, his progeny being from Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam and Imam Ali alayhi salam, is an exception to the rule, not a precedent to be followed. Just because Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, his descendants are from his daughter, does not necessarily mean that everybody's descendants are from their daughters now. This is an exception. Like I said before, an exceptional person has exceptional rulings applied to him. So, and this is regardless of the fact that there are a small amount of fuqaha who say that a person whose mother is a Sayyidah is entitled to Khums. However, that's a fringe opinion. This is just a small amount of objections that we've dealt with. I'm sure there's many other objections. And if somebody does have any, we are here. We're not going anywhere. You're free to write into us, sadat@al-ashraf.org@gmail.com. I'll put the email in the comments. I'll pin it so you can see it. Put your objections out towards us. We're here to be challenged, and we're here to challenge. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this effort for the sake of the honor of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give the Muslim ummah the tawfiq to understand that honoring his descendants, sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, honoring his descendants is in fact honoring him. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.